Welcome back to another edition of the Snakes here on OOTP 23. We are here into late June of the 2023 campaign, and I have gone ahead and simmed a little bit here off camera. One thing that did happen off camera was both Luke Weaver and Paven Smith both got hurt. Also, Darvish is now on a rehab assignment, but Luke Weaver, elbow strain, he's out for like 6 weeks. He was not good this season. I mean, he was, just not good for us. In the bullpen, I don't believe he was good either. Well, actually, he was. He actually was pretty good in bullpen, although I did have him as a not avoid high leverage. So this is just low leverage, good numbers in the bullpen, and he got hurt. Well, Paven Smith has already been on the IL for quite some time. He's just on the 10-day IL for position players, and he still has 2 to 3 weeks left on his injury, sprained knee. He was basically around a league average hitter for us this season. Not a huge loss for him to go on the IL. Obviously, we would like him to try to turn things around, though, because last year he was very good for us. But since Paven Smith was playing first base for us, now we are rocking Alec Boehm every day at first base. And Buddy Kennedy is up from AAA, and he's been good. In the 84 plate appearances he's gotten here in the big leagues. He is also playing DH against left-handed pitching, but we are going to make a change here. As Seth Beer, as you can see, minus WAR, not hitting, 256 plate appearances. I mean, the guy's a DH. Your one job is to hit, and this is 2 seasons in a row of him being a below-average bat. So we're just going to send him down to AAA here. And my thought behind this is that we're going to keep rocking Buddy Kennedy as the every 7th day first baseman against righties, and then DH against lefties. While against righties here, we're going to move Paredes to DH. And we are going to dip down here into AAA at the moment to see if we can get ourselves a bat up in the big leagues. Obviously, we're looking at these 3 guys here. Ruiz has not been good in AAA, nor the bigs. Robinson, I mean, we could look at him. He's been, good, but he's been a backup guy for us in AAA. So, I mean, we could call him up, sure, but do we really want to go for him? Or there's somebody like Cooper Hummel who has come up and been, he was good for us or this was AAA. He was, a little better than league average for us last season. We know he can come up and be perfectly fine. Or there's somebody like Jake McCarthy, who is currently on fire, pretty much fully developed according to my scout. My scout's a bit higher on him than OSA is. Very fast, can play all over the outfield. Been very good in AAA this season. 121 WRC plus, 8 home runs, 13 doubles, 14 swiped bags at a very high rate. Definitely somebody we could look at here. BABIP's not too high, basically what he usually does. Or the interesting thing to do would be calling up Corbin Carroll here. Obviously, the scout ratings thinks that he's going to be good eventually, but he's not quite to his full potential right now. I mean, could putting him up in the major leagues help him with that potential? Right now, he is a bit unhappy with his role, so that means that he's probably wanting to be in the big leagues. He does expect to be playing in the big leagues. So things could just all of a sudden click for him in the major leagues here. But he has been very good. Or I wouldn't say very good, but he has been good in AAA. 111 weighted runs created plus, 20 doubles, 13 swipe bags, at an even higher rate than McCarthy was swiping them. I mean, McCarthy absolutely deserves to get called up here, but I'm thinking we're going to lean with Carroll just because we want to see what we have in him. He's 22, almost 23. We're about to be in July. Might as well. Let's just get him up in the big leagues here. Corbin Carroll coming to Arizona. Going to be wearing number 2 for us. So here's what we're rocking with here in the lineups. Corbin Carroll becomes the everyday left fielder against right-handed pitching. Florial remains the 4th outfielder. He's going to be hitting 7th for us here in the order as Alec Boehm moves up a spot. And then against lefties, he's actually going to remain on the bench here as the backup left fielder and center fielder. Defensive substitution for Paredes late in games. He also becomes the main pinch runner. Also one of the top pinch hitters here. And we just keep Boehm and Kennedy as the bats here at first and DH while Paredes still plays left because they are the right-handed bats. And I mean, obviously Carroll still has some more developing to do here, ideally. Obviously ratings don't mean these aren't Madden ratings, you know. It isn't like a guy has 45 contacts, so he has 45 contact. He could very well come up here and just be amazing for us now that he's feeling challenged in the big leagues here. And I just don't want to rush him into hitting against lefties because he's definitely worse against lefties as a lefty-lefty guy. So we're just going to keep the right-handed bats in the order against them. Also, when Luke Weaver got hurt, the move we made in the bullpen was that Braden Ogle here was the one who got the call-up. As you can see, he is now one of our long relievers here, or middle relievers with a specialist role as well. If we take a look at his ratings, you know, very good fastball-curveball combo. I mean, basically an elite curveball here. He was good in AAA this season in 20 innings, so we've rewarded him with a call-up to come up here and pitch. We acquired him in the Alec Bohm trade at last year's deadline. We are here on July 1st, so that means two things. One, the top 100 prospects list was updated a couple days ago, and we are here at the international free agent period starting. Also, player development update, not really too much here that was interesting. Seth Beer dropping in quite a few categories. Alexis Diaz as well. But on the bat side of things here in the top 100 prospects, the usual guys we have on here, Jordan Lawler, 70th. Tamar is now the 16th. Corbin Carroll's up to 34. And Antonio Anderson, our first-round pick this year, who is currently in rookie ball, is, I already forgot, 16th on the list here. It's Tamar Johnson who's 16th. What was I saying? Antonio Anderson is 74th. I can't read, apparently. Well, on the pitching side of things, it continues to get bleaker here for us. We've had multiple guys drop off this for the pitching. Right now, the only one still on it is Blake Walston, who is in Double-A at the moment. And he has been good in Double-A, so he is going to be getting a call-up here to Triple-A. So Blake Walston now pitching for Triple-A Reno. Now back to normal on his roll-on team. I'm assuming that was probably unhappy because he expects to be in AAA, especially with how developed he is. He could be a guy, if he pitches well in AAA, he could be called up here because we are really struggling to find good pitching. And as you can see, things have not gone well for us here. July 1st, negative 34 run differential. Things are not looking good for the Arizona Diamondbacks at this point in time, especially as of late. We are 1-9 in our last 10 here. If we take a look at the calendar, which I believe is right, yes, the team's schedule. Yeah, so we had 8 losses in a row. Dodgers got swept by the Padres, got swept by the Dodgers again, and then we beat the Pirates and then lost to them again to end June. So just not a great recent stretch here for the Snakes. The good news is that we do have our international amateur cap set to 500, or our budget, I should say, set to, or no, that's the cap, but it's a soft cap. But our budget is set to the $5 million, so we're going to have a bit more to spend here this season. I'm liking what I'm seeing from this Jorge Cando guy. Shortstop, righty. I mean, I say shortstop, but I mean, this guy is, I mean, he could be anything. He's, you know, never going to be the greatest defensive player, but I mean, he can play all over the place. He's got ratings to do it all, really. He can be a corner outfielder, maybe even play a little bit of center field. I mean, he is a utility guy as it gets, and my scout thinks that he could be a very, very good bat. OSA thinks a little bit less of him. My scout's higher on him. But he is a guy whose demand only starts at $2.8 million. So we're going to go ahead and offer him $2.8 million here. So that means that we have $2.2 million left to spend before we exceed the cap, which we are not trying to do here. So we could put that all into bonuses here for Cando, because I'm sure I sim a day here and he's going to have offers from other teams. So just some budget sort of guys like Andres Vargas here, a switch-hitting infielder, definitely a second baseman with that arm. Can he play some outfield as well? Yes, he could play some left field, nowhere else, because he has the worst arm I've ever seen in my life. And but he could be a decent hitter here with 60 contact, 55 discipline, 65 avoid K, high work ethic, and his bonus only starts out at 750,000. So we're just going to go ahead and offer him that exactly as I expected here. I sim 2 days and boom, San Francisco's trying to get in on my action here. We do end up getting the second baseman with the all-time bad arm with the high work ethic here, Andres Vargas, so he gets added to our international complex. And now, after I offered Cando the other deal to top San Francisco, now Chicago is the White Sox is trying to offer him here. So just looking at our bonus here, we have 4.25 million here to spend without going over the budget. So we're just going to straight up offer that to Cando, 4.2.5 million. I think I added a couple points there in that, but we are just going to boom 4.2. And then we'll just raise it up to 5 because why not? If you want to go above that, we will say, hey, you can have him. We'll sign somebody else. And what do you know? Another team, the White Sox, has gone in and offered him. Can I actually do what I'm trying to do here? Yeah, offered him way more than we can give him here. I'm not trying to go over budget and get taxed as well as be restricted next season. Here we have a switch-hitting catcher who my scout thinks is going to be a pretty elite gap power hitter and just very solid. Otherwise, 55 catcher ability is not the worst. High leader, high loyalty. Definitely like that. And it looks like nobody's really offering him here. So we're going to go ahead and offer him 2.8 million. We're also going to offer Lupe Guerrera here, a Venezuelan outfielder, switch hitter as well, high work ethic. Never going to be a center fielder, but can definitely play the corners and be a pretty solid contact doubles hitter. So we are here on July 9th. It is now the All-Star break, so the teams have been announced here. And in the National League side of things, we have had Darian Nunez make the All-Star game. He's been very good in the bullpen for us, 1.93 ERA+, striking out a ton of guys as just a nasty lefty. And then on the hitting side of things, we have a couple guys in, who am I looking for here? Ketel Marte, very solid season at second base for us, 141 weighted runs created plus, on pace for a 6 WAR, 15 home runs, very solid for Ketel Marte. And then we also have our man, where is he? Our man Alek Thomas makes the All-Star game here. 155 weighted runs created plus. Very, very good for him. Striking out less than 20% of the time, walking almost 13% of the time. Only 5 home runs, but 13 doubles. And remember, he missed like the first 6 weeks of the season or whatever it was with that fractured finger. So he is back, and he has been very good in the time that he's been back. And then last year's All-Star, Mr. Caleb Smith here, is asking us to negotiate an extension with him. And he's been so bad this season that I'm probably saying no thank you. If we take a look here, he started off as a traditional starter, 7 starts, wasn't any good. He's been a follower since then, has been even worse. We're going to make some adjustments here now that we're at the All-Star break. One of them is Caleb Smith is no longer going to be in the bullpen. I'm no longer going to be in the rotation, rather. I've already moved him to the bullpen here. I'm not really sure what we're going to do with him, but I know that he's not going to be a starter for us anymore. Luis Frias here has not been good as a starter, unfortunately. We take a look at his splits. He was very good in the bullpen for us, very bad as a starter. So we're just not going to let him keep being a starter for us. Christopher Sanchez, our man, I believe he started the year as just a middle relief guy. Then he moved into a setup, I believe, and now he's been the stopper, and he's been very, very good in his role. 70 movement, just very good ratings across the board. He expects to be in the starting rotation. He's unhappy because of a combination of us sucking and also his role on the team. And I feel like he's a guy who could definitely translate well to the rotation here with that stuff and movement and the 3-pitch combo here. So Christopher Sanchez is going to be a guy we move to the rotation. And then J.B. Bukauskas here has not been very good. He's gotten 20 1/3 innings pitched here in the big leagues, and he's just been flat out awful. He's striking out a ton of guys, but he's also walking a ton and just not being productive here. So we're going to send Bukauskas down to AAA. I was thinking that Bryce Darvish would be a guy who we call up here, but I mean, he's not been good in AAA. He wasn't even good in AA last year. He's a guy who's fallen out of the top 100 prospects in Major League Baseball. He's very angry with his role on team. So he could be a guy here who's just pissed that he's in AAA, and maybe he performs better in the major leagues here. But we also have Yu Darvish, who, of course, we are going to have to bring back up in the major leagues here at some point. He still is on his rehab assignment for 13 days, and he has not been good in AAA. He's been getting rocked down there, giving up way too many home runs. You've also got somebody like Brandon Pfaadt, who is, once again, not having a good AAA season. a little bit better than he was last year, but also, not good either. Jonathan Bermudez, who we picked up from the Astros in a trade in the offseason. Very good stats, or ratings, I should say. My scout thinks he has. OSA is even higher on him for the control, lower on him for the slider. But he was good in AAA last year, has not been good in AAA this year, but it could be a thing. He's actually fine with his role on team, never mind. He's just pissed because of our, I guess, being traded and then his performance. He's fine with being a starter in AAA, it seems. But he hasn't really been good in AAA. He could be a guy we call up here, but I'm not really trying to. So I might just roll with Frias here in the rotation, or I might try some Tyler Holton in the rotation. He's been a guy who has come up here. He was good in back-to-back seasons in AAA for us, and he has come up here, and his numbers are a little bit misleading because he's been working as an opener and a reliever. And as an opener, he's been pretty solid. Only 8 innings and 5 starts, obviously, because it's an opener. But then as a just normal reliever, he's been awful. So that leads me to believe that he has some sort of thing in his head where he has to start the game, and that's why he's able to perform well, because it's, it doesn't really make any sense that he's good as a opener, but he's bad as a reliever, other than the fact that maybe, I don't know if you know that's a thing in this game, but I mean, he's striking out less, he's just giving up a ton of home runs. So I think that's what we're going to do here. We're going to go with Tyler Holton in the rotation, him and Sanchez here being added to the mix. And then just because we did send down Bukowski, so we have to call somebody up here, there is Calvin Faucher, whatever his last name is, who we got from the Isaac Paredes deal. I think I said when I traded for him, I was like, I know that his name is not Isaac, and I've been calling him Isaac Paredes in like every video since then, or every time I've said his name since then, but it's Isaac. His name is Isaac Paredes. But anyways, Faucher here is going to get called up from AAA. He's been solid in 30 innings for us, striking at 9.6, only walking 1.8. And he's already on the 40-man roster here, so he gets to come up to Arizona and pitch for us. And since we are here at the All-Star break, it's time to take a look at how our team has done here so far in the season. We already know that Darian Nunez has been absolutely fantastic for us in the bullpen. Christopher Sanchez as well, now getting a shot as a starter. Braden Ogle only in 6 innings, but he's been good. Edwin Uceda, once again, he's been very good for us. Ryan Nelson has been good in a middle relief role. He's now the use more often middle reliever here, who's also a setup man as a secondary role. And Trevor Williams is actually starting to turn things around here. Has his ERA down to 3.78. FIP is still 4.60. But I mean, he got off to a pretty bad start, and he's been much better ever since. We signed him in the offseason here because he had a good year with the Mets last year, and we just wanted a steady starter here for us. And he's starting to do that. He's starting to be steady here for us in the rotation here. And he's also a guy where if we continue to suck, and if we head into the All-Star break, if we head into the trade deadline still sucking, he is a guy we are going to be looking to trade here because he is a free agent. Faucher obviously just got called up, hasn't pitched yet. Christian Javier is a guy who started the season very well, but he's been about league average overall now. Since he's still striking out a ton of guys, still walking. His peripherals are basically the same that he's always had in his career here. He's just no longer still being pretty good as a starter here for us, but no longer being good in the bullpen, basically a little bit less than league average, if not probably more than a little bit less here. Luis Frias, we know about him. He is going to go back to the bullpen here, so let me actually change his thing back to reliever, as well as Caleb Smith here. So yeah, Frias back in the bullpen because he was good in the bullpen, wasn't good as a starter. Corbin Martin here has been not the greatest in the 5th starter follower role. Tyler Holton, we're giving him a shot in the rotation. Zach Gallen's been very disappointing after signing his extension through 2025, buying out his team control. After last year, he was pretty solid for us, but this year he's just been bad. And Caleb Smith, once again, was our all-star last year, now back in the bullpen because he's been not great this year. Well, if we take a look on the hitting side of things, obviously Alek Thomas has been our best hitter here in 211 plate appearances. Buddy Kennedy has been very good, mainly only playing against lefties and then like once a week against righties, but he's been very good here in the big leagues for us this season. Mike Trout's hunting buddy from Millville, New Jersey. We also got Ketel Marte, who we know is an all-star. Josh Rojas has not been as hot as of recently, but he is still performing quite well. Still, walking a decent amount, not striking out too much. Has a bit of a power surge this season. Already 14 home runs at 25. He's on the pace for 25. Only had 12 all last year. That's actually his career high here. Would be he's already passed it. 14 is his career high. And he's even got a few swiped bags at a decent stolen base percentage. Estevan Florial's been about league average as a fourth outfielder here for us. 106 weighted runs created plus, striking out an absolute ton. But I mean, what are you going to do? He's been fine. Dalton Varsho around league average as well. 102 WRC plus. Not really walking, but he's not striking out a ton either. 12 home runs, which is third most on the team. Is he swiping bags? He is. He has 7 here at an 87.5% percentage. 16 doubles, 12 home runs. Not a bad season so far for him. Alec Bohm has been our first baseman since Paven Smith has went down, and he's been slightly less than league average. Definitely not what you'd like to see. If we take a look at his splits here, bad month of July, good month of June. Not great there. Perdomo's been not a great hitter, but I mean, he's just the backup infielder, so I mean, not too concerned about that. Carson Kelly's been bad at the plate this year, 75 WRC plus, currently on a cold streak. I mean, he's just not been good whatsoever. He's also not really a great defensive catcher either. I mean, 4.9 framing runs, negative ZR. I mean, just not the greatest. Nick Ahmed's currently on a hot streak here, but I mean, obviously we never expect him to be hitting that well. Take a look at his fielding stats. Definitely still a very, very good defensive shortstop. But also, he is a guy that my owner wants me to extend here, but we are going to be, if we are still sucking at the trade deadline, he is also a guy pending free agent that we'd be looking to trade. And unfortunately, Isaac Paredes here is, we're going to make a change here. He's going to go down to AAA because he has not been able to turn things around. He had that month of May, which really saved him. I was like, all right, so he's starting to turn things around. He's walking, not striking out at all. Maybe he's starting to turn things around. And then June, he was just bad. He was not good in June either. Not striking out still. All-time bad BABIP, but I mean, what are you going to do? He's just not performing, so we can't keep him up here. We're going to send him down as well. And then Jose Herrera has just been awful as well. We're going to probably make a change here to catcher. And then Corbin Carroll has only been up for 10 games, only 30 plate appearances. He's been awful in those 30 plate appearances, but I'm not going to judge him too hard here because it's only 10 games. And if we take a look at our head scout here, our scout already thinks that he's improved his contact and all this stuff jumped. So we are going to, keep rolling with him here, give him some time. Like I said, we're not looking like we're going to be making the playoffs here anyway, so we might as well play our young guys while we can. And then we got our man Jake McCarthy here down in AAA. He deserves to be in the big league, so we're going to call him up because we just sent down Paredes. He's going to take his spot on the roster. So here's what we are going to be rolling with here, momentarily, at least up until the trade deadline. Carson Kelly, no longer the starting catcher. He is now the backup. Austin Hedges has been called up from AAA. We're going to roll with the ultimate leader, high work ethic, 80 catcher ability man. I know that that's not as important as it used to be, but I mean, it still matters. And if Carson Kelly is not going to be a good hitter or a good fielder, we're going to just have the guy who's the best fielder, the best framing runs guy, be our catcher. Also, Buddy Kennedy is now the everyday first baseman against righties and against lefties. Bohm becomes the backup. He's going to play about once a week, just giving Kennedy a rest. While Florial becomes the DH and Carroll Thomas Varsho remains the outfield and Jake McCarthy slots into the fourth outfielder role. While against lefties, it's a little bit different. Alec Bohm is the backup first baseman still, but he is also the DH, while Florial is the backup DH, and then corner outfielder McCarthy will get center field backup duties against lefties. Both of these guys are lefty bats, so I don't really want them playing against lefties, while we can have the righty-righty tandem of Buddy Kennedy and Alec Bohm in the order. Alrighty, so I've just gone through and combed through the entire minor leagues, decided who gets called up, who gets released, all that good stuff. And just the main updates here to give on some of the top prospects. Tamar Johnson just has not been good here in high A ball this season. He has been just flat out bad. He's gotten some time at second, even in left, getting that up as well. But, I mean, still 19 years old here. Maybe he'll, I mean, he just recently turned 19 years old here, so maybe he just needs some more time, but he's just going to stay put in A-ball here. Blake Walston, who we called up to AAA a little bit before the All-Star break, has only gotten one start in AAA, so not really too much of an update on him. While Jordan Lawler here has been promoted to AA. He was an A-ball last year. Wasn't that great, so I decided to repeat him at high A this year because it's the same level in this game. And he has been basically around a league average hitter, but he's been a two-war player through 300 ABs, so I figured let's give him more of a challenge here, bring him up to AA. My scout really doesn't think that highly of him. OSA is much higher on him than my scout is, but, you know, he could definitely be a guy who works his way up the system pretty quickly. I doubt we see him this season, but maybe next year we see him in the big leagues at some point. Our guy Davison De Los Santos here was a 19-year-old who he started in high A this season. Wasn't the best, but he was hitting a ton of home runs, so I was like, hey, let's just call him up because I believe he was pissed to be in double A or in single A, so I was like, let's just call him up here. He's come up to double A, and he's been a league average player in 300 ABs. He literally just turned 20 years old a few days ago. Guy hits a ton of home runs, already has the power tool. The rest of this stuff develops. He could be a very, very, very solid bat for us here in years to come. AJ Vukovic here is a first baseman who's almost 22. He's 21 in 354 days. He is a decent power bat. You know, he's not the most high-end prospect, but he's been very good in AA this season. I saw his name pop up a few times on the mail list as like player of the week with the Amarillo Sod Poodles, and we decided to reward him here with a call-up, so now he's playing with AAA Reno. Same deal with Jorge Barosa here. High work ethic, 22-year-old switch hitter, lefty thrower. He expects to be in the major leagues already, but he was in AA last year, was not that great. He was actually in between high A and AA last year, was very good in high A, a little bit less than a league average player in AA last season. So we decided to repeat him in AA. He's been very, very good this season. So we called him up to AAA here. Hasn't played a game yet, but I mean, if he continues to hit like this in AAA, he could be a guy who we see in the big leagues this season, maybe once stuff happens at the trade deadline. Alrighty, and some good news here. We do end up signing that catcher, Alexis Camarena, the switch-hitting catcher. He is now in our international complex, as well as outfielder Lupe Guerrera here, switch hitter, corner outfield type. He is also in our international complex here. Taking a peek at the waiver wire here, and I'm seeing a starting pitcher, possible starting pitcher here that my scout likes quite a bit. Good stuff, good movement. Fine enough control. 3 really good pitches. 4th, like a league average one. Been very good in AAA. Kyle Muller. I believe he's a former top prospect. I know he is. I don't know why I'm saying believe it. I know he's a former top prospect. Lefty. We need pitching. So, I mean, he hasn't been good in Atlanta, but, I mean, maybe he comes here and figures something out here. So we're going to slap a claim on Kyle Muller here. And we do end up getting him. Very, very good. Kyle Muller. Now, Fauché hasn't even pitched in the big leagues yet here, so I'm not trying to send him down yet. But Corbin Martin, I mean, I do like the high work ethic, high intelligence that he has. My scout thinks he's pretty solid. Fortunately, hasn't been solid here in the big leagues this season, so we are going to send him down and give Kyle Muller a shot in that rotation. So after sending down Martin, I realized that we actually have to open up a spot on the 40-man roster here. So I go to trade Caleb Smith because he is a guy on the last year of his deal. Has not been good for us this year. Might as well trade him, get some sort of value out of him. And Boston offers me this guy, Jack Weissenberger, righty reliever, extremely good stuff, 80-grade slider, good movement, good sinker-slider combo. OSA is not as high as my scout, but still OSA is pretty high. He's been weirdly in high A this year, where he was absolutely tearing things up. He's just recently been promoted to, actually, he's still in high A for whatever reason. He would not be in high A for us. He'd be in AAA for us. But he is also a guy who is on the 40-man roster here. So he is a guy who we are not going to be able to open up a spot on the 40-man for, but I figured why not try to also get Cameron Cannon here, because he is a guy who I like his ratings, league average contact, good gap power, very good avoid K, can play a little bit of infield, maybe some outfield if we really need that. And he's a guy who's not in the 40 man. He's going to come in. Hasn't been great in AAA this year, but was good in AA. But he is a guy who can come in and be a pretty decent depth option here in the infield for us, former Arizona Wildcat. And then all we have to give up to sweeten the deal is just this random AA lefty we have, low work ethic guy, high leader but low work ethic. I mean, he's been good. At least he's been like basically league average in AA this year. He's 25, almost 26 in AA. I'm fine with giving him up. All right, never mind, I was wrong. Apparently, for whatever reason, we saw that he was on the 40-man roster for Boston, but he is not for us. He does not. He's not on the 40-man roster for us. So I see. He may opt out. He may opt out if he's not promoted before day 30 of the regular season. So that's why they had him there. In that case, we are indeed going to add him to the 40-man roster. All right, to open up a spot in the 40-man at the moment, we are going to trade Jose Herrera. He is our awful attitude catcher here, high greed, low leader. Just not a great guy to have on the team here. Selfish personality. He's okay defensively, okay ratings. He's not been good in the big leagues or in the minor leagues for us, although very small sample size. Not a part of our long-term plans here. So we're just going to get him off the team and get something for him while we can. And that's going to be Luis Heel. Potential starter, probably more of a reliever here. OSA thinks he's a little bit better with the control than my scout does. But a guy who strikes at a ton of hitters, walks a little bit of guys, but I mean, I don't really care about that low of a walk rate if it's going to have this type of K percentage as well. He's been a solid pitcher, was really good in AA last year for them. Torres Labrum has 5 weeks left of recovery time, so he's going to be on the 60-day IL for us here. At least for a little bit longer, buys us some time to open up some more spots on the 40-man here before the trade deadline and when he comes back. He'll obviously also need the full rehab time. And then there's this guy, Andrew Schultz, who's also part of the deal. Very volatile reliever, nasty stuff. 2 really good pitches, good movement, throws 101. Just overpowers guys. For whatever reason, at almost 26, he's an A-ball. Wouldn't be an A-ball for us, but he will be a guy who's going to be in our organization, though. I'm also realizing that we're going to have to open up a spot in the 40-man here in about 6 days when Yu Darvish is ready to come back. Like I said, he's been getting pounded in AAA during his rehab assignments. But, I mean, we might as well have him up in the big leagues here because he is a guy who is we're paying a lot of money here, and he hasn't pitched a single inning here for us. And then just because we might as well, we got Blake Workman here, was good in AAA for us last season, came up to the big leagues, was awful in his 4 innings. Has been not great in AAA this season, although the FIP's been fine. We're going to call him up here to the major leagues, have him be up there for the rest of Yu Darvish's rehab assignment, and maybe if he's really good, we are able to keep him. If he's not, then maybe I trade him or DFA him or whatever it may be. Or I could also end up DFAing a guy like Kyle Dowie because he's definitely more of a not sure thing. I feel like as Workman, I like the control and movement, but Dowie just less of control. 3 good pitches here, at least what my scout thinks. And OSA, high work ethic guy, but he has been not good at all in AAA this season. And look at this, Buddy Kennedy has had 4 straight games with a home run here. Very, very solid for him this season. Also, Yu Darvish, rehab assignment has run up. But Buddy Kennedy, been very, very good. 182 weighted runs created plus here in 139 plate appearances. So he has been much more, already 13 home runs. He has 13 home runs. He's been up for 139 plate appearances. And that is the fourth most home runs on the team. And these guys have been here for over 400 ABs. Well, would you look at that? Braden Ogle has been bad. Calvin Fauché has had 3 innings and hasn't given up a run. And Blake Workman has had 2 innings and also hasn't given up a run. Muller has gotten 1 start, and he is just about to get another start here. Well, it looks like Tyler Holton has gotten 2 starts here as a member of the rotation, and he has been, I guess fine in both of them. Not great, but also not the worst. Just to open up a spot on the big league roster here, we are going to send down Braden Ogle, so he's going to go to AAA. And then I don't think Kyle Doey is going to get claimed, so we're just going to go ahead and DFA him to open up the spot on the 40-man roster. We're going to get a bit wild here for at least a bit. We're going to rock a 6-man rotation here as Darvish is going to get added on to the back end of that. And we're just going to roll with 7 relievers here. Nunez, Uceda, Frias, Javier, Nelson, Fauché, and Workman is going to be the bunch we roll with. Also, we do have a little bit left of Paven Smith's rehab assignment. He's gotten 7 games in AAA. He's been fine down there. But with how Buddy Kennedy's been playing, I'm not really rushing him to the big leagues here. But I mean, Corbin Carroll has a 7 weighted runs created plus. Austin Hedges has a 9. Just because Paven Smith is almost back here, I do want to take a look at who we could possibly trade, because as we can see, we are not a team that's going to be making the playoffs here. You know, negative 28 run differential. We're 21 games back in the West. When it comes to the wild card, we're 8 games back. We have a long way to go if we want to come and make the playoffs here. And it's just not looking like it's going to be a thing. So we could potentially trade Yu Darvish. I mean, he could be a guy who comes in and pitches like 1 or 2 games for us and then gets traded at the deadline. That probably would be the smart thing to do with him. Nick Ahmed here's in the last year of his deal. He's obviously a guy who has value because of his defense. We could keep him, but I mean, I don't really want to. He's making $10 million this year. I don't really want to re-sign him to what he's going to potentially want here. Let's just see what he wants here. Yeah, I'm not trying to give Nick Ahmed $20 million a year. Luke Weaver as well. He's got 2 weeks left on his elbow strain, and then he's obviously going to have a rehab assignment. But I mean, he's a guy we can still try to trade at the deadline. He's in the last year of his deal. It would be stupid not to at least try to trade him. Trevor Williams, once again, we said a guy who we could be trading here. He's on the last year of a 1-year deal. Mauricio Dubois, we could possibly try to get some value out of him. He's been in AAA. He's been fine down there. He was good for us in the backup role last year, was not good in the starter role this year. Carson Kelly could be a guy we look to trade, but he's also probably more of a guy that I would want to trade in the off season and just keep him, because it's not like we have a guy who can immediately come up and be another catcher here for us. We could try to get Merrill Kelly's deal off our books once again, but it's not like he's done anything to help his value. He's still bad. He's actually out right now for 6 months with a partially torn UCL, so he has even less value than usual. Also, the Millville man himself, Buddy Kennedy, has sent shockwaves through the major leagues with an eye-popping performance. Player of the week, 4 home runs. Those were all in 4 straight games. And I just simmed up to when I was going to start making deals, and Darian Nunez is out for 4 weeks with trained biceps. Not great there, because he has been probably our best reliever. Definitely not as good as he was, but still been very solid for us. Just taking a look at our team rankings here, as we can see, hitting-wise, we're not too bad when it comes to a hitting team here. 5th highest WAR for the Bats. 3rd highest team batting average. Only the 8th most runs scored, though, and that's really what's killing us here, is we're just not scoring runs. Also, I believe last year we were really good at base running. We got a lot of extra runs because we were one of the best base running teams in the league. This year that has not been the case. And also, we've been decent with defensive efficiency, but not great with zone rating. That's probably because, I'm not really sure why, because last year, we were playing Mr. Dalton Varsho here, who's not a center fielder in center field. He hasn't been good in right field either, but he's also not good in center field. So it's not like it's a downgrade of having him not in center field and instead having, where's our man, Alec Thomas here in center field, who once again we can also see is also not a good center fielder. That's kind of an issue we have with our outfield situation at the moment. Obviously, Corbin Carroll has just come up here. He hasn't been great, but I mean, we're not going to, give up on him through 93 plate appearances. He's not a center fielder. He's, fine to play the corners, but even then, he's really not, he's not the greatest defensive player of all time. Obviously, Alec Thomas, we know, is not a true center fielder. We're just playing him there because we don't really have anybody else. And then in right field right now is Dalton Varsho. So our outfield situation, we don't really have a true center fielder on the team, which is always going to hinder us when it comes defensively. And then, of course, we are trying to be trading Nick Ahmed here at the deadline, which is going to take a tank to our defensive rating at shortstop as well. Like, once we trade him, it's probably going to be Geraldo Perdomo who gets time at shortstop, who is, fine. He's probably going to play an okay shortstop. I mean, he was a good shortstop in AAA. Hasn't really played enough to have, like, a true rating here in the big leagues, but in AAA, he was pretty good. Even somebody like Esteury Ruiz, who we picked up in the Bumgarner trade where we got Darvish, which has so far not been a great, valuable trade for us. Ruiz was not good in the big leagues here to start this season. He was quite awful, in fact. And he hasn't really been great with the bat in AAA either, 81 weighted runs created plus. And then can we pull up his AAA here? He's been playing right field, it seems, but he's only been like okay in right field. He's fine. He's a positive ZR player, but probably not going to be, a great center fielder either. It looks like our AAA manager is playing Leody Taveras in center field, who is a guy we picked up off of waivers in the offseason. He's been fine in AAA. He's never going to be a great bat, at least not right now. And he's also a guy who, he's playing a 2.8 zone rating in center field. Is he going to be a gold glove center fielder in the major leagues? Probably not. So we're here shopping Nick Ahmed for a prospect package at the moment, and the best offer that I'm seeing so far that I like is this one that Minnesota's offering me. They would give me Gilberto Celestino, who is a 24-year-old outfielder. Once again, probably not a true center fielder. He was pretty good in Double-A in center field. Hasn't been as good in AAA, but not as many innings, but still like 255 innings. I do very much like what my scout thinks of his ratings, though. Going to get on base quite a bit. Going to hit some doubles. Never going to make truly consistent contact, but he should walk enough and not strike out too often and be able to hit some doubles to be a pretty valuable player. As you can see here, he's split the year between Double-A and AAA. He's been about league average in both sides. But also, do we really need to add another AAA outfielder to this team? I think we have enough of these type of players. We would just be adding to our already existent logjam. The other offers that really stood out to me are these offers from Philadelphia and the Angels. The Angels are offering this reliever who just has filthy stuff, 3 great pitches. Never going to be able to hit the broadside of a barn, though. Definitely a very volatile type pitcher, as I accidentally back out of that. Kelvin Caceres here. He's been in high A this season. He's been good in high A, but ideally we'd like to get him up into Double-A. They're also giving us Gabe Matthews here as a lefty-righty first baseman. He's fine, but I mean, he's just a first baseman. If I do accept one of these, I'd probably try to see if I can get different prospects, try to, mess around with these a bit. I'm just kind of giving you guys an idea of what the offers we're getting for Nick Ahmed here. And then the third guy would be Brandon Comia, who is a high leader infielder, not really too exciting of a player. He has been pretty good at the bat in A-ball, but he hasn't gotten above A-ball and he's 23 years old. I do like the walk rate. He's basically walking just as much as he's striking out, which is not very much with the strikeouts and quite a bit with the walks. Well, in this Philly trade, the main piece here would be Andre Palante, who's a high movement starter. Could be a very decent ground baller here. Sinker, slider, curveball, changeup's not really that great. He has spent some time in Philadelphia. It looks like he was also with St. Louis last season, where he was pretty good out of the bullpen for them and between Philly. Was not great for Philly, good for St. Louis, which is good, which is not great to see because apparently he was with St. Louis and they traded for him and he's been bad since they traded for him. This could be why, though. He apparently does not get along with the manager, so he could be a good change of scenery type pitcher. Definitely we could use a pitcher to come in and be pretty solid for us. Plenty of years of team control left with him. I'm not as big of a fan as the secondary guys, so I would definitely be looking to get different players from Philadelphia if this was the deal I went with, because Casey Martin, I mean, he's a 24-year-old infielder in high A ball with the Jersey Shore Blue Claws. Shout out to them, my hometown team, or not hometown, but the team I grew up going to games. And then Baron Radcliffe here, also 24 years old in high A ball. I've actually heard of him before. He's been a guy who always pops up in trades in OOTP for the last few editions. High power guy, has some pop to his bat. Isn't really a guy who performs, though. Not really too interesting. And when it comes to the Angels deal, this is about the best that I can work from them. It's basically just the same three guys they offered me in Comia, Caceres, and Matthews, but I'm able to add on another reliever in this high movement reliever, 23 years old, literally just turned 23. He's been on high A 2 seasons in a row, being a good pitcher. We would move him up to double A, but definitely a guy who could be fast-tracked to the big leagues here. But I mean, it is just another reliever, so it's not the most valuable thing. Did a little shop here for just prospects, just to see an idea of some decently rated prospects that other teams would be interested in giving up. Right off the bat, I'm noticing somebody like Luke Murphy, who has been up in the major leagues for the 14 innings. Looks like they promoted him straight from high A to the major leagues this season. And he's been very good, as you would expect with these ratings. Extremely, extremely impressive ratings. High leader. Never going to be a starter with that stamina. But I mean, he could with those 3 pitches working. I mean, very, very enticing player, but at the end of the day, he is just a reliever. But then our other options are like Jake Smith here, who stands out but isn't, that impressive, at least ratings-wise. He's been good. He's in high A as a almost 24-year-old. Alec Burleson is a really good bat, but he's just basically that. He is a very much lumbering, not great defensive player on either the corner outfield or first base. Just a guy who's going to come in there and be a really good bat. But I mean, we don't need a guy like this, even if he is tearing the absolute cover off the ball in AAA. I mean, at the moment, we have Jake McCarthy DHing, and he is actually on fire up here in the big leagues. Only 51 plate appearances, but I mean, he's got a 225 WRC plus in those 51 plate appearances, and he has been very good in back-to-back seasons in AAA for us. So, I mean, is Burleson probably a better hitter overall than McCarthy? Yeah, but I mean, McCarthy at least has some positional versatility and all the outfield positions, also some first base. And then remember, we have Paven Smith coming back here any day now to come in, and we're going to have to make some changes to the lineup here. We've also got guys down in AAA like, where am I looking for? Isaac Paredes, who we did trade for because he is a guy who should be a good bat for us. He's been good in AAA while down there, at least in WRC+, plus, not so much OPS+, plus, but he's been only 28 plate appearances, obviously. But I mean, he was really bad in the big leagues here. -2 WAR, not great there whatsoever. But also, he's just getting all-time gypped with the BABIP here. I mean, Jesus. And then, of course, we also have somebody like Seth Beer, who's in AAA. Basically just another Alec Burleson, although he hasn't been as good. He has been turned up AAA when he goes down there for the couple stints we've had him down there, but I mean, he has not been good in the major leagues for us. So my point being is we probably don't need to acquire another guy like Alec Burleson. We can manage to get both Caceres, who is the main piece in the prospect package they offered us, and that Luke Murphy guy, who is the very solid reliever from Vandy, who's been good in the big leagues here for them, very much so. Just looks like he could be a really, really consistent bullpen guy. But in order to do that, we would have to add Avery Short here, who I don't really care about. He's just, just a random guy in high A for us. Not really any good. He's, fine. He's never going to be a major league pitcher. I can add on Yvonne Armstrong, who is the high movement reliever that we were also going to add on, but I am not able to add on, what's his name here, if we scroll down, Brandon Comey. If we added him to the deal, I would have to add a bit more, and I'm not trying to give them even more for a guy who's, he's been hitting well, overall very consistent player at the plate. I don't think his rating's really anything, but I mean, he is a decent player. All right, so it turns out that Trevor Williams here doesn't really have as much trade value as we thought he would. Obviously, he's not the greatest pitcher, but he's been fine this season on the last year of his deal, so I figured I would try to trade him. I shopped it as just prospects, nothing popped up, add regulars, and there are a few guys here on who we could just like swap value for. One guy who's interesting to me would be somebody like Edmundo Sosa, who could come in and be a decent infielder here for us. The ratings aren't too impressive here, but he can play a pretty solid infield as well as some outfield if we really wanted him to. Hasn't been great this season. Exactly a 0-win player, 68 WRC plus, obviously. But last year, he was exactly a league average hitter, and he's still only 27 years old, like halfway through being 27. I think he's a valuable player. I think we could absolutely get value out of him, and he's got team control. He has only got 3 years of major league service. He's currently getting paid $3.5 million. Next year, the arbitration would go up to 4.6 with the estimate. He is out of option years though, so he would be a guy who would be stuck on the major league team for us. All right, so it looks like we're not just able to add on like a reliever or two here. We're actually able to get a pretty decent haul here for Trevor Williams. Edmundo Sosa would be the main piece, obviously. Andrew Morera was the first reliever who jumped out to me. Seems like he could be a pretty good right-handed side armor. Has some good fastball slider combo here. Above average stuff, movement and control. Hasn't been great this season in A-ball, but it's probably because he's extremely pissed because he's 23 years old and they refuse to move him past A-ball. Also, he's from New Haven. He went to UConn. That's a plus for me right there. Then there was this Aaron Antonini guy who's a catcher, Venezuelan. I noticed him on another shop trade. He's been in AAA this season. He's split between AA and AAA. Hasn't played much, but he's fine ratings. Could be a decent depth catcher to have. So he's going to get thrown in the deal as well. And then also some two big bats here. Alec Burleson, who they're just don't really think much of because he doesn't really have a position. He's just a pure DH. Is somebody they're willing to give up here. So we're gonna just add him to the deal. Might as well. If I don't have to give up Nick Ahmed for him, might as well. And then also one of the best nicknames in all of baseball, Ivan Melendez, the Hispanic Titanic. High work ethic, big power bat. Not going to develop much more according to my scout. OSA thinks he even has more power than my scout does. But, he's been very good since being drafted in the 4th round in 2022 by them. Just tore up A-ball, tore up high A. Then this year he tore up high A. They moved him up to double A just recently, and he's been good up there. Obviously striking out a ton, but only 19 plate appearances, so that's not really inducive. That's not really, what is the word I'm looking for here? Not really representative of his actual strikeout totals. It's probably going to be more along the lines of like a mid-20s. But even then, he is a big power guy, so you don't really care if he strikes out in like the high 20, early 30s strikeout percentage if he's going to, add a bunch of bombs to your team as well. And we're going to do this. We're just going to do this. Trevor Williams going to the Cardinals. We get this big haul from them. So I'm here trying to shop Nick Ahmed, and I'm adding Drew Jamieson here in the shop offers because he's a low work ethic AAA starter who's been, fine for us in the PCL this season. He could come up and be like something for us, but is he ever going to be anything better than like a 4th or 5th starter? Probably not. He's almost 26. Like I said, low work ethic. This is the best he's probably ever going to be. So he still has some value because he's a starter. So I figured, why not try to get like a center fielder here? So I sort by center field prospect. Also did some prospect packages that seemed pretty interesting. But I see Alan Cerda here, who, if you're a fan of the Red series, which if you're watching this series, you probably are, is a guy who was raking in the minor leagues for us in that series. And I see here OSA, or my scout thinks he's got some real pop. OSA does as well. Real solid. Not a center fielder, obviously a corner outfielder, so we're not going to be trading for him here. He's currently up in Cincinnati right now, and he's got 8 home runs. He's on pace for 12. Here's like a bench bat for them. But I scroll through and I look at what he did in AA Chattanooga last season. 55 home runs, 55 bombs in Chattanooga. 121 hits, and 55 of them were home runs. Absurd. And I'm thinking this is the deal we're going to do here for Nick Ahmed. The Angels had offered me Jeremiah Jackson, who is 23 years old, up in the big leagues for them. Definitely more of a third baseman, second baseman type. Can play some outfield as well if we really wanted him to. Has some positional versatility. Definitely not a shortstop, though, that's for sure. He's a guy who is the number 91 prospect in baseball. Like I said, 23 years old. Last year was very, very good in AA, one of the best players in AA. Got called up to AAA, hit, only barely played though. Started this year in AA for whatever reason, was good in AA, wasn't great in AAA, then got promoted. He's only been up for 33 games, but he's a guy who could be a very, very solid player for us in the big leagues. My scat seems to think that he could be all the routine plays and some outstanding ones, projected to be an above-average big league second baseman. So I feel like this is a deal we just have to make. Jeremiah Jackson, Nick Ahmed, and Drew Jamieson, who we already went over, are the guys going to them. And we get Luke Murphy, who is that super solid reliever that we were talking about. We also get Avon Armstrong, who is the high movement reliever we were talking about. And we get Brandon Comia, who is just the high leader infielder who we could possibly maybe get some TCR luck on. Because he has been a guy who's performed at every level he's been. We'd probably call him up to Double-A and see how he does there. So here we go. Nick Ahmed to the Angels. Boom. Decreases a lot, fan interest, but oh well. And I've done a shop player for prospect package and just for the regular prospect single player. Nobody wants Yu Darvish. I don't blame him. He hasn't pitched at all this season, as I'm trying to just get back to here. He's making 18 mil. His contract is up at the end of the season. I don't really care too much if we don't get any value from him. Luke Weaver is another guy whose contract is up at the end of the season, so I'd like to get some value out of him. He has not been good for us in the major leagues either season. Currently hurt, but he's almost back. He's got 1 week left in his injury here. Did a little shop for him as prospects. Nothing popped up. Regulars, this is a really weird deal that I would probably be crazy for doing. Corbin Burnes, as you can see here, pitched only 4 games last season. He tore his rotator cuff, missed all of last year, came back this season. I guess pitched in 3 games and got 3 rehab games and got hurt again. Because, yeah, he tore his meniscus, and he's been out since then. And now he's almost back from the torn meniscus. So he hasn't pitched in basically a season and a half. We all know that what he did in 2021. Obviously, he hasn't pitched basically at all in the actual OTP sim here. OSA seems to think seems to think less of him than my scout does. Although literally the only thing that changes is, I guess my scout thinks that he has more stamina and his changeup's better than OSA thinks, and that's really all that changes. Not that scout ratings are the be-all, end-all here. He is a guy on an interesting deal, so he would be signed for the rest of this season at $10 million. The next season jumps up to 17. Then after that, it's 24, and then he has a player opt-out. So, I mean, like, if I was to do this, ideally, he, like, pitches these 2 seasons, and if he's not, like, the best pitcher in the league, he opts out. But that's probably not what happens. What probably happens is we trade for him. He's still injured. He's, not the Corbin Burnes that we think we're trading for. And he's like, well, I'm not going to get this value anywhere else. So he doesn't opt out. And then we're on the hook for 3 years of, below league average Corbin Burnes. So even though it's like, hey, we could get Corbin Burnes for Luke Weaver, and if that works out, that'd be like, wow, we robbed them. But also very high chance that it doesn't work out. And none of these guys really interest me at all. Like, I'm not interested in Fulmer or Ramos. I mean, maybe Isaiah Kiner-Falefa to come and play shortstop, but I mean, probably not. Yarlin Garcia is a perfectly fine reliever, but I mean, the whole point of Weaver was we're trying to get him off the 40-man here, and Garcia would just come in and just take his spot on the in the rotation and on the 40-man, or not the rotation, but in the pitching staff. And since we are trying to open up a spot on the 40-man here for Luke Murphy, who we just traded for, and we can't really trade Luke Weaver, I'm just going to go ahead and waive and DFA him to get him. Never mind, I could just put him on the 60-day and then waive him. So we're going to transfer him to the 60-day for now. Alrighty, so I'm thinking that is going to be all the trades we make here at the deadline this season, and this is what the new look team is looking like. So the rotation, pretty similar: Gallen, Sanchez, Holton, Muller, and Darvish. No longer the 6-man, and then in the bullpen, we're going to have Luke Murphy, the guy we just picked up from the Angels here, as our stopper, because I think he's a pretty good candidate for that. Uceda, Frias, Javier are still the setup guys, while Nelson, Fauché, and Workman become the middle relief guys with secondary roles as setup. And then Braden Ogle is back up from AAA as a specialist with middle relief secondary role because we didn't have any lefties in the pen, and I would like to have at least one lefty in the pen. Well, here's what our lineups are going to be looking like here. We have called up Alec Burleson from AAA because, as we know, he was absolutely tearing the cover off the ball for the Memphis Redbirds. They've had him down there. He's finally broken out, and we're going to reward him with a call-up here. He's not playing every day, but he is up in the big leagues for us. That means we also sent down Alec Bohm. He's now down in AAA because we wanted Burleson to be the backup first baseman and DH here. McCarthy's been tearing the cover off the ball in the big leagues. As we can see, 225 WRC plus in the short time he's been here, but we are going to keep him in that role until he cools off, and then maybe he goes down, who knows, but ideally he just keeps hitting like that. Also, Estevan Florial got sent down to AAA as well, so our outfield situation now, Jeremiah Jackson is going to be the guy who gets the corner outfield duties. He's, fine enough to play in the corners as the backup, and then backup center fielder will just be Jake McCarthy because he's basically the only true outfielder on the roster right now, while Burleson is the backup DH and first baseman, Sosa backup second and short, and Jackson is backup third base, while Perdomo becomes the everyday shortstop. I just feel like we started him at shortstop other than Sosa because I feel like Perdomo gets he deserves the opportunity to play every day. We haven't given him that opportunity. He got hurt to start 2022, so we're just going to see what he can do here when he's playing every day. All against left-handed pitching, it's a little bit different. Perdomo still at shortstop. Sosa's now the backup infielder, or I should say that against righties, Sosa's playing every sixth game, and against lefties, Sosa's playing every fourth game against lefties at shortstop. So McCarthy now all three backup infielder. Jackson becomes the DH against lefties because McCarthy is a left-handed bat who isn't really the best against lefties, so I figured I'd just leave him out of the lineup against left-handed pitching, while Burleson is still first base and DH backup. And then the lineup, pretty self-explanatory. Buddy Kennedy's been on fire, so he's keeping that in the cleanup role and the fifth hitter against right-handed pitching. All right, we simmed a couple days here, and I totally forgot about Paven Smith, who was on his rehab assignment. So now he's back up on the team just as a bench bat for us here, pinch hitter against righties and also against lefties. I did not want to send down Burleson, even though he'd probably make the most sense because I feel like I just want him up here in the big leagues. And we sent down Braden Ogle. So Ogle already had an option used this season, so he just goes back to the AAA. And we're rocking with the all-righty bullpen. We just got here to August 1st, so the player development update has gone through, and as you can see here, Buddy Kennedy, his month of a tear here has gotten him some big boosts. Jeremiah Jackson's got some boosts as well as Corbin Carroll, who's in the big league, just getting straight pluses across the board. Same thing with our guys Barossa here in AAA, and Halverson, who's actually in AA right now because he was so good in A-ball, because he's definitely too good for A-ball here. Looks like he's struggling a bit in AAA, but oh well. Or AA, rather. But he has improved across the board here. Unfortunately, Isaac Paredes has dropped across the board here, which is not what you like to see. Pretty solid achievement pop-up. Ketel Marte here, 31-game on-base streak. Very solid for our second baseman. And we got a DFA run-up, which is Alexis Diaz. We waived and DFA'd him off the 40-man, which I forgot to show, but he was a guy who was not good in the big leagues for us at all this season, so we sent him down. And he's been, fine in AAA, but decided to waive him. Nobody claimed him. And just some brutal news down in AAA. Our man Blake Walston, who was one of our top, still is, 53rd prospect in baseball. Very good pitching prospect. Was very good in AA for us this season. Called him the AAA. He was okay, but unfortunately, partially tore his UCL. He's out for 7 to 8 months. He was definitely a guy that I was going to be looking to call up at some point here down the stretch, but unfortunately, that's not going to happen. Taking a look on the waiver wire here, and Michael Gigliotti, who is actually, I believe he was actually a guy we did a prospect profile on back in the MLB 18 Royals series, if I'm not mistaken. Super fast, going to walk a ton, 70 range, 70 error, could definitely play some solid center field for us. I'm always on the lookout for guys that can play a really good defensive center field or shortstop because they are valuable. Those are positions that I would not mind having guys who aren't the greatest hitters for us. And Gigliotti definitely seems like he could be that. Hasn't played in the big leagues for the Giants here. Looks like he hasn't gotten any major league service time. But we're going to slap a claim on him, see if we can get him here. Also, just a little interesting tidbit that I've been following all season long. At the end of last season, I was looking at some of the indie leagues, and Kevius Sampson here is a guy that we added to a short list here. He had already been scooped up by a KBO team. As you can see, here's a free agent at the end of the year, and he has just, my scout thinks he just has filthy stuff. He's a guy who could come in and very well be a solid starter for us if he pitches like this in the big leagues. He was in indie ball last year, was just phenomenal. He led the league in strikeouts. Obviously, the best ERA numbers, but still very, very good year for him. And here in the KBO, he's been even better. 3 ERA, 11K per nine, just broke the all-time or the single season strikeout record in the KBO. So pretty solid player here who I'm definitely keeping my eye on as a possible guy we could pick up in the offseason. Now, Gigliotti is a guy who I'm not going to have in the big leagues here, at least to start. He actually does have options still available. We just do need to add him to the 40-man roster. And I'm thinking the way we're going to do that here is we are just going to DFA Yu Darvish here, who's been really bad in his 5 starts since coming back from the IL. I mean, we're just DFAing him, and he's just going to get paid what he's going to get paid anyways, and he comes off the books at the end of the season. Nonetheless, so might as well just get him off the roster, open up a spot in the rotation for somebody else. We need to go with somebody who's already on the 40-man, and Jonathan Bermudez is a guy who is indeed on the 40-man. Hasn't been the greatest in AAA for us, but we acquired him in last season, or in the offseason, I should say, from the Astros. So I figured I might as well see what we have in him, so he's going to come up here and pitch for us. What it really came down to was I just didn't think we had enough lefties in our rotation here, so I figured we'd call Bermudez and just get another one. So Yu Darvish has indeed cleared waivers here, and we're just going to release him, pay him the $3 million that we owe him for the rest of the season, which is going to come off the books at the end of the year anyways. So Yu Darvish, it was nice knowing you. You had a very short stint here at the D-backs. Not ideal. Blake Workman was just diagnosed with shoulder bursitis. He's out for 6 weeks, so that's not great. He was indeed pretty decent here for us. Actually pretty solid. 29 innings. 127 ERA plus, 77 FIP minus. Not a huge strikeout guy, but very effective nonetheless as a fastball slider changeup mix. Our man Darian Nunez is currently on a rehab assignment. His injury was bicep strain. He was out for 4 weeks. He's pitched like 8 innings in AAA. Hasn't been good in those 8 innings, but I mean, might as well just bring him back up here. We have an open spot. The 25-man or the 26-man is going to move the 28-man here in like a day anyways, so you might as well bring Nunez back up. We're just going to make him a middle relief guy because he was the stopper before he got hurt, but like I said, he was struggling in his rehab stint, 9 walks and 8 innings, so not great there. While Luke Murphy has been phenomenal as our stopper here in the big leagues. 21 innings. I mean, he's doing basically he's even better than he was with the Angels before we traded for him, and he was very good with the Angels. And we are indeed here on September 1st. Another player development update and the roster expansion takes place. And we are already playing with like 1 less reliever than I would usually play with. Only 7 of them right now. I usually like to have 8 relievers. So I feel like both of the guys we're going to be calling up from AAA here are going to be relievers. We don't have any room on the 40-man roster right now, so these are the options we have to call up. Brigden, Martin, Ogle, and Weissenberg, and I'm pretty sure Weissenberg's been really bad here in AAA. We took him from Worcester, and he's just been awful. He has been awful here in AAA, to the point where I might even send him down to AA. Let's just have him finish the season in AA. I usually don't like to demote like that, but we are moving him from high A to AAA. I don't like to skip a level like that, so we're just going to have him go down there, and hopefully he can figure things out, because, a 12 ERA is not acceptable. 4 home runs per 9. But Ogle here has barely gotten a chance in the big leagues. We called him up earlier, and he only got like 9 innings. Didn't really get too much of a chance. We could always use another lefty in the big league bullpen, so he's going to be the one of the guys that goes up. And then the other one here, Corbin Martin's been awful in AAA since being sent back down from the major leagues, where he was also not great for us. Even though he does have the high work ethic, high intelligence. Brigden here, who we picked up from Tampa Bay on the Isaac Paredes deal, is a guy who hasn't gotten a shot in the big leagues here this season, and he's been good in AAA, so I think we're going to go with him here. He's going to become a member of our bullpen, Trevor Brigden. And here we are about halfway through September, and unfortunately, Corbin Carroll has torn his labrum, or partially torn his labrum, as an outfielder. Pitcher injury happening to an outfielder, that's not ideal. Already has a pretty bad arm here, but as you can see, our scout thinks that he has made some huge progress this season. And he also has gotten up to a league average when it comes to WRC Plus here, which if you remember, he was really, really bad when he first came up, but he has been very much better ever since like the All-Star break, I'd say. Yeah, June, July was not good in the big leagues. August was on fire, and he's been very good in September here as well. So very good to see there, but unfortunately, he is out for the rest of the season. And our man Gigliotti here, who's been very good for our AAA affiliate, he's actually been quite above league average, walking quite a bit, not striking out a lot, getting on base a ton here, swiping bags at a very efficient rate, a perfect rate. And he is actually going to come up to the big leagues here and be our backup center fielder. And another very bad injury just happened. Ryan Nelson, who's been one of our better relievers, out for 6 months with shoulder inflammation. Not great. Like I said, one of our better relievers this year, 144 ERA plus, 80 FIP minus, striking out a bunch of guys, not walking anybody. I mean, he's a guy who could transition to the rotation at some point too, so that's not great to see. And since that opens up a spot on the 40-man roster, since he's on the 60-day IL, I'm looking at some potential guys we could call up. Kenny Hernandez is an interesting guy, ground ball pitcher, not a hard thrower, but he's got some decent movement control, good changeup. He's been very good in Double-A this year. He was a starter for us last year, and he seems like he could be a starting pitcher, actually. In Double-A, he was a starter, and he was very good. This year he's been in the bullpen and started 4 games. He's been very solid for us. But there's also just Brandon Pfaadt, who currently is on a cold streak. But I feel like we just have to see what we have in him. I mean, we might as well. He used to be one of the top prospects. OSA is a bit higher on him than my scout is. But, I mean, he's had 2 seasons of 150-plus innings in AAA. We might as well just stop wasting his innings in AAA and see what we've got in him. So he's going to come up here to Arizona. Brandon Pfaadt's going to make his debut. Would you look at that, Mr. Luke Murphy on a 12-game shutdown streak. Very, very good. As we go to his page here, yeah, I mean, just like I said, he's been phenomenal since coming over from the Angels. Like I said, he was good in Anaheim, or definitely not Los Angeles, even though that they have the Angels. They play in Orange County. That's not LA. Anyways, comes over here, pitches extremely well. Very, very impressed with what we have here from a Vandy arm. So the 2023 regular season has come to an end, and unfortunately our D-backs, as expected, or at least as expected once we got to like the All-Star break, do not make the playoffs here. They did have a pretty decent run there at the end of the year, finishing at 80 and 82. So not as bad as we were, around a 500 team, basically around the same as the Giants, but I mean, still not a very good season, especially with what we did last year. Least amount of errors in all of the National League, though, so that's good. And if we just take a look at our arms here at the Major League level, just a recap of how we did this season. Luke Murphy, I'm going to sound like a broken record, phenomenal in the stopper role for us since coming over from the Angels. Edwin Uceda, once again, very good in the bullpen for us. Last year, he was an opener/bullpen guy. This year, just straight bullpen. Continues to be very good. I don't know if he's ever going to be a starter for us. He could be a starter, but I mean, he's so good in the bullpen. I mean, we might as well just keep him there. Brandon Pfaadt came up and got 9 innings pitched in 2 starts and was actually really, really good in both those starts. If we take a look at his game log here, lost in 4 2/3, but he did strike out 8 in 4 2/3, and then he gave up only one earned run, 2 earned runs against San Diego in that win. So 2 very solid pitching performances for Brandon Pfaadt since coming up from AAA. Darian Nunez was, pretty good in the bullpen for us, struck out a ton of guys. A 12.2. I always scroll down, even though it's right here. 12.2 K per 9. Didn't walk too many guys either. Pretty effective in the bullpen for us. Luis Frias, once again, having a solid season. I thought maybe he was going to be a starter for us this year, but didn't really work out. Definitely a borderline starter now, so he's unhappy because of our record and his role. So maybe next year he gets another shot in the rotation. But right now, I mean, I'm fine with him being a very solid bullpen arm for us. Christopher Sanchez Definitely was very good in the bullpen for us. Doesn't look like he was as good as a starter if we go to his splits. And yeah, definitely below average as a starter. But I mean, he was really, really good in the stopper role. So, maybe he's able to figure out the starting pitching thing. He definitely seems like my scout seems to think he can be a good starter for us. I like the movement, like the extreme ground ball guys. So I'm not going to give up on him as a starter, but definitely not as good as a starter this year as he was a reliever. Well, if we also take a look at Kyle Muller, you can see here ended the season on a hot streak or on fire. And he was actually pretty solid for us as a starter in 13 games, 13 starts. For whatever reason, he had a relief appearance. I don't know what that's about. But 73 innings here, 109 ERA plus, 121 FIP minus. But yeah, just all around a very solid year for him since coming over from Atlanta, where he was not good, was good with Gwinnett, was good here in Arizona. So maybe we found ourselves a decent starter to have that we just stole from the Braves for nothing. Bermudez was the guy who came up from AAA here and got 5 starts and 6 relief appearances. I moved into the rotation when Fat came up, or moved into the bullpen when Fat came up, and it looks like if we sort by major leagues, yeah, better in the bullpen, but I mean, just slightly below league average as a starter. Seems like a lot of guys tend to struggle when they first come up, obviously. I tend to kind of ease guys into starter roles. I definitely like to have guys be relievers if they can before they move into full-time starters. But, I'm not too concerned about those ratings because I also don't think that Bermudez is a guy who's going to be like a long-time starter option for us. Christian Javier got off to a pretty hot start this season. Finished not great, though. Still struck out a ton of guys. But, overall, I guess he was fine for us. Tyler Holton, the lefty who we split between the bullpen for a little bit and a starter. He was okay, like a little bit below league average. Nothing really to write home about. Probably not going to be a long-term starter for us anyways. Braden Ogle was not really that great as a lefty. Calvin Fauché wasn't that great. Zach Gallen, the South Jersey man, was very disappointing despite having the most starts in the league, apparently. A 2-WAR, but I mean, not a very good 2-WAR. And then Trevor Bridgen came up at the end of the season and just wasn't very good either. Only 12 innings, though. While on the hitting side of things, we had a lot of guys who came out and had pretty solid seasons. Ketel Marte, a 143 weighted runs created plus, 142 OPS plus, 27 home runs, 45 doubles, only 3 swipe bags, but a 100% succession rate. Just a phenomenal season for Ketel Marte, 6.5 WAR. I mean, what else can you say about him? He's very good. Alec Thomas, another guy who's extremely good, 2.9 WAR, 136 WRC plus, 32 doubles, 12 home runs, 11 swiped bags. Definitely, the power numbers will probably improve as he gets his feet under him here at the big leagues. But I'm not concerned with a guy who hits like 12 to 15 home runs every single season. Really, what probably hurt him though was that he played center field, and he is not a center fielder though. If this was the zone rating for his left field all season long, probably not only a 2.9 WAR. He's probably got a bit higher of a WAR than that. Buddy Kennedy, though, very, very solid year for him, coming up from AAA and just being an absolute monster here, 120 WRC plus. Ended up with 19 home runs and 14 doubles. If we take a look at his splits in the major leagues here, yeah, definitely struggled to end the year in August and September, but I mean, he was on fire in July. I mean, he just absolutely tore it up in July. 27 hits, 9 of them home runs. Josh Rojas was good for us as well. He 3.5 WAR. I mean, just back-to-back very, very similar seasons. Jumped his walk rate quite a bit this year, up to 11.7. Big power surge as well, 22 as opposed to 12 last season. Got a little bit like 100 more ABs than he had last year, but I mean, still pretty big power jump there. Swiped more bags, but less efficient, but still not the worst percentage. all around very solid season from Rojas, while Dalton Varsho as well had a pretty good season, above league average. What can you say? 23 home runs, 34 doubles, good stolen base percentage, nothing to complain about with him. Jake McCarthy came up from AAA and was pretty solid. One more player on the bench. He tore it up for like a month for us, but I mean, aside from that, he was just, I guess, okay. Well, nobody else really did too much of the bat. Paven Smith, 233 plate appearances, basically around league average. Carson Kelly wasn't great. Alec Burleson, unfortunately, was not great in the big leagues here, but it's only 100 plate appearances, so I'm not going to judge him too hard. And we basically got him for nothing, so I mean, I'm not going to complain too much. Edmundo Sosa was not good in St. Louis. He actually was. Never mind. He was actually around league average for us as a shortstop. I don't think he was good defensively. Yeah, definitely not a good defensive shortstop for us. Perdomo was struggling, even though he did end the season on a hot streak here. If we take a look at his major league splits, yeah, he's been pretty good in September here. 136 WRC plus, but very small sample size, obviously. But in August, he was awful as the starter. Jeremiah Jackson, also not very good at the dish here. We got him, the 91 overall prospect from the Angels. Murphy was very good in that deal, obviously. Jeremiah Jackson did not get too much time, but he was really, really bad. Walking 2% of the time, striking at 30% of the time. Not great whatsoever. I mean, a guy who, we need to see these type of power numbers, what he did in Double-A. We want to see that finally kick back into gear. Hasn't shown it since that, but we would like to see that kick back into gear here. And then Austin Hedges, I mean, he's Austin Hedges. He doesn't hit. He had perfectly fine framing runs here, 5 framing runs. Fine, nothing to write home about, barely played anyways.